we go. Alright, that should be working now. Let's have a little look. Alright, so let's get this loaded up. Have a look at what's going on inside this pack. So yeah, anyone who's joining, I am going to take a little bit of a look inside the Synty Sci-fi Horror Pack. There's a couple of really cool things inside here. I'll probably end up making a bunch of blueprints and just experimenting with things that are in here as well, maybe taking some things apart, having a look at how we can make some of this stuff interactive as well, maybe. We'll see. Okay, so let's just get this out there and that should start us off. Alright. Let's get this last bit set up. Cool. Alright, cool. Let's have a little look. So what I think of, well, what I've done is I have basically got a third-person shooter pack. It's a framework that is available on Fab, so I will quickly show you this third-person shooter framework. It is this lovely one here, this third-person shooter kit. So I've basically put this into here. That is my starting point, and I have added all of the Synty Sci-fi horror things directly into there. So that means that I don't just have to start with a third-person character. I can start with a third-person character with a whole bunch of guns and things like that. So if I was to press play, I'd probably need a player start somewhere in here, but if I was to press play, you can see that we are already in here. I know somebody's already said that's a really big hair, and that is the exact same size of hair that the actual mesh has. I've just added it on top of a socket on the head. I've gone for a character that looks a little bit like Ripley, and you can see we can walk around inside of here. We can aim, and I've also started looking at putting some of the weapons in so we can have a look at how they might look if they were being held by a character. But yeah, cool stuff just having a look around here. So let's have a look at actually what we've got inside the pack, and then I'm going to look at all the really cool meshes that are in there as well. So first thing I would probably want to do is, rather than just running around these corridors and inevitably getting really lost, I'm just going to go to lit, unlit, and I'm just going to zoom out and just show you what the demo scene actually looks like, which is quite sizable. It doesn't feel like it when you're in there, mainly because very enclosed little sci-fi spaceship. Everything's going to feel very similar. There's obviously the use of the different wall sections. There's lots of repeating of those. I mean, there's plenty of walls in here, but there's going to be obviously a lot of repetition of them as we build around. And what you'll see is that there's actually lots and lots of these little rooms. Each one of these kind of a little kind of showpiece, little set piece, and they're very similar to Alien. So we've got the kind of recreational room. If we zoom out a little bit, they have actually got these signs. So if you want to follow the signs and follow the decals on the floor, you can see this takes us over to our cockpit. There you go. We've got some kind of storage areas and things downstairs. Actually got an alien nest. It's really nice. This area goes to some kind of like mother. So if you've watched Alien, this would be mother. This would be the kind of control machine. And this kind of feels, it's just all right, it's just a wall with a load of stuff on it. It's not until you actually look at this and realize how many of these kind of individual greeble elements have been added onto here. So this is something we'll look at when we look at the individual pieces. I'm really impressed with all these kind of greeble pieces, but you can see that just putting all of these together, we've got wall sections, pieces that are all just coming together that make the inside of this spaceship, make it look really cool actually inside. So yeah, we're going to walk along, we're going to see what's in here. You can see that the actual floors are just, some kind of little floor grating bits that go over the top of pipes. And it's really nice on the downside. And again, look at these walls. Every single one of these walls is greebles, 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 greebles. Loads of them. So if you are doing anything sci-fi, so for example, using the sci-fi city, sci-fi spaceship, the sci-fi space, and the sci-fi worlds, each of these things is going to be really, really useful. Now, obviously, again, I'm in the unlit mode. If I looked at this in lit, it's still visible. It's just really dark for us to see each of the individual meshes. I'm going to get one of my little gripes out of the way straight away, but I have spoke to or put a message, talked to Synty about this. One of the things that was really awesome in one of their previous packs on the Horror Asylum was it was built in the demo scene to basically be like, have a go, get in there, start walking around and see everything. Now, one of the things that we've got here is that doors are placed in doorways, in door frames, but they're not immediately openable. So what you'll find here is actually you get over to this, and this is just a static mesh that is blocking your way. So you can't just walk around the ship, and that's my only little gripe. Like, just some simple timeline opening and like triggering of doors, having a trigger. And this is something I'm probably going to build and replace all these with in a bit. But if I could do that and just walk over to here, have this open, go in and see this. I don't need interactivity. I don't need to be able to pick up each of these things. But just having the doors open so that we could get in and have a look at all this stuff would be awesome as well. So yeah, you can see there's a whole downstairs area, there's a whole upstairs area, there's kind of areas down, there's a nest, there's a lab. So they've kind of gone very, very Nostromo. There's a little Prometheus coming through in the pack as well. There's also a lot of things like Dead Space, feels like it's in there. Some of the weapons feel very Dead Space. The alien feels a little bit Dead Space. And obviously all the dismemberment stuff. Cool. All right, so this is obviously the pack. Let's have a little look at what's like if we were to jump in and just have a look at running around. And I'm just going to switch it just to lit mode. And I have put a very basic post-process volume in here only because it was really, really bloomy. It's just too far. I need to just put myself just a little bit higher up to press play in here. This pack just needs I need a player start in there, really, don't I? All right, let's drop a player start in and see where it wants me to go. So, player. The only reason I haven't added one is because I've just really enjoyed just starting wherever. So let's put this player start in. I have gone in the world settings. I've got my own horror character, which is a child of the one from the pack. And there we go. So we can walk around now and have a little bit of a look. Cool, so we have got this recreational room, loads and loads of attention to detail. We've got this table, we've got the chairs, very big blocky kind of pieces, but it's all these little bits here, things like the trays, the cigarettes, and the half-eaten donut. Loads of little attention to detail been added in here. So here I'm going to residential, and we can even look at the green stuff on the floor. It's telling us where to go. Got all these kind of growth things over the side. Go into residential, and this one you can see doors left open. That's nice. Got some vents, got some vending machines, got some doors. Actually, every single one of these, I've been going through each of these, every single one of these door elements, even the things on the vents, they're all separate kind of elements. So this, you can actually open this door. I know you can't see it and do it right here, but if I was to just detach myself just for a sec and fly in there, I'll just press F8 to do that. You can see that actually this is a door mesh with a door handle. So what you could do with this is make it interactive, have the door handle open, and then obviously walk through, and there's a whole nother bedroom kind of area inside of here. So yeah, let's just press F8 and go back and become Ripley again. And let's go and have a look down here. So engineering, there's loads of little particle effects. Might need to turn off some of the collisions on these, so you can see I'm caught there colliding with some wires, but you know, just turn that stuff off. And what have we got in here? Well, luckily, yeah, I can't quite fit down there. Luckily, I have got, this is why I use this character, I can crouch and roll a little bit around. And yeah, something I have noticed that's an improvement over probably going back to around about Horror Mansion. Horror Mansion, what Synty did a lot with their decals was they made the decals as basically transparent materials, and they put them on a plane, so a very flat single-sided mesh. They put that on the plane, and then they put it really close up to the wall, like 1 unit away from the wall, so it felt like that was being projected on. Now in their Unreal packs, at least, we have actually got decals, and they're great, and I can walk around. There's a couple of instances where the decals are a little bit too far away. No, it's the demo scene, but there's a couple of instances where they're a little bit too far away. So you can see it's not a problem here. We're not getting yellow on our feet, but a couple of instances where the blood, you can just walk in and get covered with blood. Yeah, here's one of those examples where I can't actually fit through there. And it's just cool if, you know, if you could just have it open a little bit or widen. The particles are also quite a big step up from previous ones that we've had. And let's have a look. What have we got down here? Can I roll under there? I think I could probably crouch through there. There we go. And this is definitely that corridor from one of the previous screenshots for marketing. Yeah, with the guy coming down this big red corridor. There we go. Alright, cool. Medical. What's in the medical one? Probably something eventually when I can get through. One of the things, again, lots and lots of little side rooms. If I just press F8 and just have a look at what's behind here, you can see that there is a load of extra stuff just hidden away from us that we just can't access. But we can see it through windows at least. So yeah, and oh, here you go, is the little cleaner guy, Sweepo. Everybody loves a little Sweepo. He's going to be a little AI thing I'm going to do at some point. The vents are actually accessible. The only problem is that what I found is my default mannequin kind of scale is just a little bit too small. This one might be blocking me a little bit more because you can see that dark area at the top. That's the opening for the vent. But if I actually just go in there with just the vent normal size and switch, like have it as like what #1 scale, 100% scale, it's just not accessible. You can't fit through with a basic mannequin. But like a 1.1, there you go. You can see that little bit instance. We see the blood all over us from the decals. But yeah, if you go in there with like the 1.1 mannequin, sorry, 1.1 scale, you can start fitting through. So I think I still have that in a practice kind of area where I was testing it out. Yeah, you can kind of go through all these vents and make areas to go in. Again, would be cool if this door opened up, but never mind. Let's just go and have a little bit of a look inside the lab. That's a very unusual. I would love to know the environmental storytelling background behind this, of how this hand is just holding on. Yeah, was the person holding on for dear life and then just got ripped off and pulled away? But yeah, like loads and loads of stuff. And one of the things, again, I'll point out with this is that this feels like really busy, really cool with all the kind of stuff that's going on. But this is loads and loads of individual pieces. So you can actually kind of go through and start editing each of the things that are on the screens. We've got all these kind of greeble elements that are placed around on everything. We've got the cupboards. And on top of those, you know, we've got all of the decorative elements and lots of the drawers. Yeah, drawers are actually open and closable and interactive. There we go. So yeah, let's just go back to our character and just do our last little bit of a run round, and then we're going to go and have a look at what's actually in the pack in the overview. So back to the cockpit, and I've got to try and remember where my little corridor is that goes off to the downstairs, but I can never remember which one it is. Let's just do F8 just for a second, see where we are. Yeah, it is through that little room that we're just on the other side of. Okay, so what I'm just going to do, just to show you this, because look, again, the cool things that this pack has that makes useful for me. If I go with, so I've just pressed to open my console command. If I do toggle debug camera, press enter. I'm now in the debug camera. I can move and fly around. I've unpossessed my character, but I can come over here, look at the other side, and you can see it's giving me some data based on what I'm looking at. Again, I'm going to open up the console command and I'm just going to type in teleport, not teleport, teleport. Press enter, and it should, if it's got space, let's have a look. It should teleport me over to there. Why aren't we going? Have we not got enough space to do it? Maybe if we go this side. Alright, so, alright, we're not going to do that. Fine. That's a pain in the butt. But yeah, I have made this ladder. You can see I've actually replaced an extra ladder in. So I've got a functional ladder just so I can go down and see what it's like down here. But yeah, we can teleport, and we should be able to teleport as long as we can find some space to do it. Maybe the capsule's just not finding enough space to be able to get down there. There you go. See, it works when I've got this bit, and then just toggle debug camera again. And I've just moved to a different area. So you can see I can now go and walk around downstairs. Obviously can't get through that door. Cool, so let's have a little bit of a look. Now we're in and we've kind of had a look at, you know, what the demo map is, which is really cool. I could go and gush for ages about, you know, the lights and the fact that they're all changing and flickering. We could have a look at the greeballs again a little bit more. There's so much cool stuff in here. But let's go and have a look at the other maps. So demo exterior. We'll have a little look at demo exterior first. It's just basically the outside of the spaceship. Yeah, there's some cool stuff here in terms of, you know, the particle effects and showing it. Really got to put a post-process. There's no post-process in here, so as you just load in, I have changed the project to run on Lumen because it was just giving me loads of lighting warnings. So I just thought let's just throw it onto Lumen just so I can run around and not worry about baking in any kind of emissive. But you can see, look at all that. It's like a Michael Bay film with all that kind of flare everywhere. But yeah, this is the exterior of the ship, and really what we've got is we've got the ship's wings, left and right. We've got the kind of front of the ship, the main body. We've got the top fairing, and then we've got the back engine section. Yeah, which is like one massive engine section. So it's not kind of like, you know, your craziness that you might get with a modular kit where you can put together your own spaceships. If you want to have a look at that, then look at the Sci-Fi Space. And there's not really anything to stop you taking some of these pieces, combine them with Sci-Fi Space. But really what they've done is they've looked and gone, all right, how can I make some kind of like Nostromo Bison class ship from Alien, make it look, and a little bit of Prometheus as well, make it look syntified, and go, cool, that's the inside of your ship. Like, this is where the cockpit is, right at the front, somewhere around here probably in that viewing area, and everything we've just seen is all the corridors going down this middle area. If you're interested in it, go and have a look at the layout of the inside of the Nostromo. Like, it's a tiny small bit that they live in and they work in as part of that massive ship. There's loads and loads of like corridors and things like that off at the side. But yeah, this is what this map is, and I mean it's showing off the ship. That's cool if you want to put this ship into some kind of cutscenes and have an outside view of it before you go and drop in. So yeah, I mean they didn't have to do an exterior, but they have, so awesome. Now the overview. Again, cool that we have an overview. I like having an overview map. One of the things with the overview map is that everything is laid out lovely and neat, and there's that massive ship. The only problem I find is that one of the things I like to do is use the actor palette to build my levels and build out, and these are great as kind of like yeah, everything's in here, what's in the pack, but I don't find this very useful to use for my actor palette. So what I'll show you in a sec is some actor palette levels that I've built, and one of my processes that I like to do is I like to go through the packs and basically build my own actor palette levels, because by doing that I am kind of telling myself and showing myself exactly what's in that pack. Yeah, so it's very easy to just be like, all right, cool, there is a, like, you know, load of stuff here. What's this? Oh, we've got this pillar, we've got another pillar. But actually if we looked at this, you know, there's pillars there, there's a pillar over here, there's a pillar over here, and it's quite easy to get lost in like, what are my different options as I'm building this out. Yeah. So yeah, let's have a little look at what we've got. This little section over here, I'm just going to slow down the scroll a little bit. This little section over here, just going on your question there, D2. No, that one that I show, actually, if I play just from here, the one that you can see is it's from that third person shooter kit. Yeah, so I know that I'll get back to you once the kind of latency of live stream gets you. But yeah, this is like just from a third person shooter kit. I did show it earlier on. I can put a link to it if you're interested. I basically use it as a lot of starting points just because it has like lots of exploration-y kind of stuff. It doesn't have climbing. That's one of the things I would like, but it has ladders, and lots of my like demo scenes and things tend to just be ladders. But yeah, you can see we've got different guns. I can swap through a whole bunch of different kind of weapons from here. And it also has things like cover and stuff as well. Oh, didn't mean to press that one. Yeah, things like roll. So yeah, I just mess around with this a little bit because it's just nice to be able to get in and play. I suppose that is one thing, that the character that comes in that pack, it uses the Unreal 4 mannequin. So one of the things that I could do, and you can see here, if I go like this says it uses player character base. So if I go and have a look at this character, the horror demo one that I've created, there's no actual new functionality in this character. You can see the event graph of the character is completely empty. All it is that I've basically gone in here into this player character base that existed in this third person shooter. I've created my own child of that, and you can see this one here, mannequin. In my one, all I've done is change the mannequin to be the crew member, so I can mess around with this, and obviously they're all set to be, you know, working on the mannequin. That's probably not going to be the best combo there. We can go through, maybe have a little bit of a look there. That's a little bit more Ripley, isn't it? Though I don't know why she's lost a shoe. Let's maybe have a look and see if we can find one where she can keep her shoe. That would be great, wouldn't it? But yeah, these are a little bit more kind of crazy sci-fi stuff. What have we got? Spacesuits. We've got the dead ones as well. That's an interesting one. So we can actually have characters walking around with their heads missing. So yeah, I'll point that out. Like you can see here, look, head missing. It's not too hard to. What I've done here, I've attached a hair mesh. So basically I've just added a static mesh. I've gone to the parent socket and chose to socket it here to the head bone. And then whatever mesh I put onto here is obviously going to be attached to that head bone. Now what you could do is you could do the exact same thing, but instead of the hair, so all these hair things would work on that. You know, somebody said again, like the hair's very big, but you know, I could put headsets on there. That one should work. So let's just change that over. Will that one work? I need to go and find these in the content browser. So Control B, and I can find them in the content browser and attach them over there. There we go. So you can see that they would appear on their head. Obviously, if I had a character that had a head, let's switch back to one with a head, because otherwise it's going to look silly. There we go. So yeah, if you've got these attachment points, you just basically got to go through and be like, okay, if I've got a Synty pack, what do I want? Well, I've got pretty much head options in this one, but in other packs you might have different kind of attachment points. And yeah, the thing with these is like these skulls here, you could have actually multiple things. You could have multiple socket points, because you might have a helmet socket and a head socket, and the head one is like your head attachments. So you could put helmets on there. You could put the actual kind of heads and have the heads being detached off. All the attachments, things like hair, again, like that's how big the actual hair is. It's quite a big haircut, which makes sense, you know, it's like 70s 80s sci-fi. It's not modern day hairstyles, is it? But yeah, one of the cool things on some of the demo scenes is like having the skull and then putting the helmet on top. Very kind of I can't remember which episode it is, but very Doctor Who, where you've got those ones where you get really close and the darkness inside of the helmet. Yeah, you could do that kind of stuff. So yeah, we've got a character, messing around with that. All I've done is change the mesh. I added an extra static mesh for the hair mesh. One thing I did want to do is, because the Synty packs use let's have a quick look if we find, so if I go in my third person kit here and have a look for meshes, no, it wouldn't be meshes, would it? It'd be mannequin. Yeah, so obviously they use this pack, this third person shooter pack, it uses the mannequin. So I've got the SKM mannequin, which, you know, it's your generic UE4 mannequin. I've got the SK mannequin skeleton, if I was to go in this skeleton, one of the things that you can do a lot of the time with Synty packs, especially now because they're going through and they're making all of them UE5 and UE4, UE5 compatible, you can actually go and say, well, because they're all using a UE4, UE5 skeleton, a UE4 skeleton, we can make those skeletons compatible with each other. We can say that these two skeletons are the same, which means that any animations that appear in for one can work on the other one. And the other thing is, well, is that any characters like the preview mesh, you can see that I can actually preview, even though this is from that shooter pack, each of these characters can be used on there. So it's not like that there's multiple things there. Yeah, so one of the things that I would do with this is I would go through and say tools and no, sorry, not tools, window, asset details, and you can just make compatible skeletons. Yeah, so pretty much all Synty packs now just make a compatible skeleton. And the only reason I didn't make a compatible skeleton when I put it into this pack is just because this one has an absolute ton of additional kind of sockets and things for the weapons. Yeah. So yeah, what you get in a Synty pack nowadays is you get this epic content folder. It has a blueprint, which is a third-person character. It has a mannequin, which has all of those kind of default meshes and things. And that's just all ready to go. And also, they actually give you a whole bunch. If you go into Polygon Sci-fi blueprints, you get a whole bunch of characters as well. So every single one of these characters is set up as a playable character that you can just press play and use. So if I go into here, for example, let's have a little look at this spacesuit one here and go in, you'll see that this has everything set up. Now I may have broken something because this might have been looking for a socket that doesn't exist anymore. You see this sock head? It may have broken because I was obviously swapping it to run on the other pack, but you can see that each of these, so we've got the hair, we've got the helmet, we've got the helmet glass, they're just static meshes that have been set to parent to this socket. I don't have sock head, I don't think, anymore. No, see, I've got rid of that one, but I could just do either a head bone or I could add a socket inside the skeleton specifically for those things to be attached to. So these are all kind of there just to press play and run around. Yeah, the only reason I use the third person shooter is just because I like having all the extra stuff and trying out the guns. So yeah, loads and loads of characters. We've got male and female. As usual, you know, you can go into these and you can start messing around with the actual materials. So we've got material 1, all the variations of those materials, so you can change the colours of the suits. Maybe I'll do that in a bit. We have got this big kind of mining rig, which is also really, really cool. And we also have this alien. So one of the things I might do in a little bit is just bring in the some of my kind of creature and monster animation packs, and we may get him just moving around and just showing what he looks like with animations on him. But yeah, so cool stuff. There's also this little gribbly guy. So yeah, we could have a look at the little gribbly zub. What else have we got? All right, weapons. Let's have a look at weapons. So weapons. One of the things I have asked about is basically skeletal meshes. Previous packs have come with skeletal meshes of the gun. So if I press Control B just to go find these, you'll see that we go meshes, weapons, and every single weapon in this UE5 pack here is an individual static mesh. Now that's not terrible. That's not like the end of the world. Lots of these systems, like this third person shooter kit, you have a tick box and you can be like, am I using a static mesh or a skeletal mesh? And if you're using the static mesh, it just uses that. And things like the hammer and the prod and things like that, well, yeah, they're gonna be a static mesh. They're not going to be a skeletal mesh. But some of these things, we might want to have extra skeletal elements on there. So things like the rifle, we have tended beforehand to have a skeletal mesh of that. And so individual bits that need to be maybe animated or used as socket points might have been actually kind of editable through the skeletal and animation system. So things like the trigger is a separate static mesh. The ammunition is a separate static mesh, but because it's not a skeletal mesh, we're not having all the options here to have like a socket point for where ammunition's going to go into, or to be able to kind of just animate this trigger, because we probably just want to, like, you know, either, well, probably not that one, it's a very sci-fi one. We're probably let's move it down to like 1 on my scaler. We're probably just gonna push it in and out, aren't we? But yeah, that's just a thing I have noticed, and you know, it would be nice to do that. So yeah, maybe I might go through, I might add some sockets into here and do that. It's just nice when it was running on the exact same system. But yeah, like I think I'm going to go through and probably mess around with this one at some point. This one is called the drill. And yeah, I'm probably going to have to find some really cool animations to be able to hold that, because I'm imagining it's got a left hand and a right hand holding version. But yeah, this, we can spin this bit here. That's pretty cool. So yeah, we can have a bit of a drill. And we have got also the cutting bit, the cutting blade, where I'm pretty sure has there's a separate mesh for the cutting one. There it is, this one here. So you can see that the spinning blade obviously is separate as well, so we can spin that. And we also have this one, which is where I said earlier, this is a very Dead Space kind of pack as well. So this one, you can see that the front bit is separated, so we could switch it maybe for different fire modes. I'm not saying that this is the Dead Space mining laser, but it is called laser cutter, and it does rotate to allow us to split like that. Yeah, so cool stuff we can do with that one. Yeah, we've got a flamer with the flame canisters. There is also a separate flame canister over there for ammunition, and we have got a blowtorch. And I think this is one of those really cool things with this, that if you're doing Alien, like if anybody's ever played like the Alien RPG, like the tabletop RPG, what you'll find is that there's loads of these kind of non-weapons, like pieces of equipment, tools and stuff like that you can use, that also have a combat related benefit to them. So things like using a blowtorch. Could I use the blowtorch maybe to seal off something, to close up a door, or could I use it as a weapon to fend off the alien? Yeah, same with like the cutting tool. Could I use it to dismember? And yeah, we got all of these broken dismembered bits over here. Could I use it to dismember, or is it just for cutting through metal piping and things to get in? So yeah, there's loads of weapons. Pretty cool variety. There's melee weapons and there's range weapons. There's a flamer, there's a giant laser, and some kind of really cool tool things as well. Let's have a look at proppy kind of stuff over here then. So props, this stuff over here, you will see trapped humans. Yeah, I do need to actually go through my own little demo scene and find these, but there's a whole bunch of trapped humans. This is very much your aliens, where they've kind of taken the colonists and they've embedded them in the resin in the wall. And we also have some of these kind of vine bits. Now I do need to go and have a check, but I reckon these are very similar to some of the other ones, these kind of alien growths, very similar to some of the vines we've had in like Horror Mansion and the kind of the Fortress. I think the Dark Fortress recently had those. So there's probably a bunch of extra kind of bits you could bring in from other packs, combine with here for different kind of growths, especially if you combine the materials. The egg, it's not quite an alien egg in terms of, you know, Alien the movie, but we've got, you know, these alien growths. Maybe you shoot these and they get bigger and smaller and they explode. And then this one here, you see alien growth open. Both of these are static meshes. But if I go and have a look, I have to go and have a look for it in Alien. And it should be somewhere in here. There we go. Alien growth rigged. So let's just go and have a look at where that one exists. So we go show in folder view. You can see it's there in the environment section. And if I open that up, it actually has a skeleton on there. Yeah. So each of these kind of side bits is an individual petal that actually opens up. So you want to do some cool cinematic moments. Maybe you want to have something that, you know, when you get close, you could have a proximity kind of thing around this. And as you get close, we could say, well, let's open each of these individual petals up. I might make a control rig and mess around with this a little bit, but yeah, you can see that they do have a nice little blend on these animation kind of points here. So we can go through and open that out, which obviously opens out to look like the one we just saw in the scene, like this. Yeah, so that's nice. I like that. I like that it's got the kind of the skeleton, got the bones in there. What else have we got? we've got a whole bunch of tiny little egg growths, depending on the kind of alien growth that you're going for. So we've got these kind of little egg sacs and egg packs and things like that. Again, all these little kind of growth elements. We've got these ones that look like egg sacs, like, you know, spidery kind of ones. You can have lots of them sticking out. Or obviously we go for the overmorph from Alien, and we have loads of these all over the ground. This has got this material, so it's white and green, but you can see we can go with the orange. We could go for the darker materials. We could have this growth stuff blending with it. This is a very kind of Event Horizon style kind of craziness generator. And yeah, they've got two two versions here. We've got the unfinished version and the kind of put together things there. We do need more alien biomass. Let's quickly go and have a look. We've got the tentacle things. We can get more of them. We have got these kind of trapped people. There is, and again, this is where everything's kind of lost in the craziness of all this. We do have these additional walls. So you can see we have like this central pillar. We have another pillar and another pillar. So there's three of them. One of them's flat to go against the wall. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4 walls that have alien growth on them. So if you want to have like the underlayers, maybe blend this in with sci-fi worlds or sci-fi space or even sci-fi city, yeah, and then have kind of these as your alien areas, you can see that they're pretty much the same snapping, the same size as all the other walls. Yeah, so the generator, well, say generator, you know, the power core, whatever you want to use it as, it's actually a bunch of separate pieces. So we've got this big ball that's flashing here, yeah, the orb, and you could do all sorts of cool stuff with that. Like, you know, you could have it spinning around, rotating around, you could have things moving around it. We've got this base section, this generator section, and if we have a look at this finished one over here, so let's just slow down my scrolling bit, you can see that actually placed into each one of these is one of these individual power cells. Now, they are luckily pretty much a nice snapping, yeah, we could say like 180, this slightly, I mean, that's a float rounding error there, but 45 degrees, that's nice. I've noticed some bits that gripe a little bit. I'll show you one of them in a bit. This one's nice where like you can place this thing in and we're literally just taking this generator, so sorry, this power cell. So here's the power cell. If I was to like, well, I didn't want to snap it over to origin. There we go. If I take that power cell and just rotate it by 45, you can see it's ready to go in. So that's a nice thing. And again, because this is going with that very alien vibe to it, you can also see that we've got lots and lots of kind of octagonal shapes. So again, nice, easy rotational values to do with that. There is a control panel. I don't see the control panel attached to this, but there is a control panel that is linked to the generator. Right, let's go over here and have a look at what other cool craziness. Now, we've got a whole bunch of signs. I'll show you the signs in a bit. We've got posters. Posters, they've gone for actual physical 3D posters rather than decals. I'm okay with that because that gives us lots of this kind of detail elements where they're ripping and sticking out from the wall. But there's probably a lot you can do with just creating your own basic decals with these, because there's a whole like posters kind of texture section as well. So if we go into textures and posters, you can see that pretty much every single one of our posters exists as an individual kind of thing. So we could maybe make our own decal posters out of those. We've got a whole bunch of kind of weaponized, well, racked up weapons. So there are some weapon racks. And one of the things you'll also notice is there's lots of destroyed versions of things. So yeah, there's a load of meshes, loads of meshes. But what you're going to find is actually there's a lot of like clean and new versions and then destroyed versions. Yeah, there you go. Pipe straight, pipe damaged. There's a lot of those with definitely things like the posters. There's a whole section. I'll show you the crazy section. It is somewhere over here. Here we go. This section over here. Look at all these post-it notes. I think there was like 9 post-it note versions. Yeah. And yeah, I think like if we look at how many posts, actually what we'll do, let's jump into my little prop scene. So what I've been trying to do to learn the pack for myself is I like to make my own actor palette kind of levels. So I'll just quickly show you. I don't think actually I have got an actor palette turned on in here, but if you went into plugins and you turn on the actor palette, you can then load up a level so that you can basically have it as a little level that you can just drag elements from. So one of the things that I try to do is make my own little actor palette levels just to go through and learn what's in a pack. So you can see here, this is me going through and working out exactly what we get with weapons. I've been looking through, all the containers and things like that. So you can see where there's individual kind of the actual container, the glass as a separate element. This is one of those ones where it annoyed me a little bit. I'm going to have to look at this if I make this interactive, but this one, we often have bits where this one has its pivot point down at the origin of the mesh, so we can make sure that they're matching up perfectly. This one, because obviously we want to open it, the pivot point is at the side of the gate, or at the side of the door. What we've got though is that this one doesn't have kind of a local setting, so you can see switching it back and forth here, so opening it doesn't open along the hinges. So I've just got to do a little bit on that one, but that's the only one that I've found so far that's actually bothered me. I think all the rest of them have been pretty good. I did go through all of these, so you can see when we're looking at how many meshes we've got, well, we've got folded, I think they were, curved versions of the post-it notes, clean versions of the post-it notes, damaged versions of the post-it notes, a couple of groupings of them. So there's quite a lot of lots of little details. Yeah, I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. We have got names, and anybody who knows the Synty team will recognize a whole bunch of these because they are people that we already know. And look at that, hey, it's Jason, that's me. So I am immediately happy with this one. These are nice because obviously we can use them for maybe attaching to our character, but we could also put them on stuff like lockers and beds and things like that, adding a little bit of an environmental storytelling element. I've put out all of the signs, so you can see we have got airlock, cockpit, the CPU core, which is that kind of mother center, cryo area, engineering, lockers, medical, reactor, and residential. Yeah, so pretty much most of the main areas that you would find on a ship. You can see here, this is my big bundle of things to be sorted and go through, and you can see I'm just going through. We got more bobbleheads. Yeah, we've got the alien, the knight, and the police. At some point we'll probably go through and put all the bobbleheads in one place so we can make a little Fallout style collectibles. Bits of bodies, they're always nice. So yeah, cool stuff. Look at all these wires. They are very, very nice, especially for adding kind of damage or even just having them. Let's just say that the engineers have not been the most careful and the most health and safety conscious. So we could use these maybe to frame kind of areas of our level. We could use them to add some detail. And yeah, they're hanging wires. We need hanging wires all the time and all sorts of different stuff. It doesn't have to be a sci-fi horror spaceship. Maybe could do with some more pipe section, like wire sections if I wanted to use them for the floor, like leading lines and guiding things across the floor, but we have got the decals, they're useful for that. Here you can see all the stuff that goes onto the shelves as a separate mesh that we can just put on. We have got separate drawers. Yeah, we can see this one, the door's open. We've got two options for what fills inside of there. And for the most part, I've got to go through all of the meshes and just make sure, but for the most part, every single one of these is something that you can find as a separate mesh somewhere else. These are the vents. So if I just quickly show, I think this is the one that I was messing around with. So this is a scale 1. So this is this is the default scale that you're going to get. And if I just scale this to 1, I think it's 1.1. Again, let's just go into this kind of starting pack. That's right, geeky. That's actually a really cool idea. Actually, I could make some spline meshes for these and just lay them out on the floor. There you go. So just to show you this is me just taking. Crouch height's going to be really different in different packs, isn't it? Or in different frameworks. It's going to be different for different characters. But you can see here, my character can't go through this at scale 1, but scale 1.1, perfectly fine. Yeah. So I'm just pointing this out that these are accessible. Like they actually have like complex collisions around the side. If you want to have your character be able to go into the pipe systems, then you could crouch and start using that as an ulterior kind of traversal route for the character. Each of these, again, like we have covers, so we can have these being turned on or turned off, maybe opened up. And these bits here, you can see that I've actually kind of taken this bit out. So you can see there's the kind of cover bit, and each of the kind of fan blades are separate as well. So yeah, you could put maybe a material. We can make your own custom material. You'd use world position offset to make this look like it's spinning, or you could use a timeline in Unreal and make this, or you could use a rotating movement component so it keeps on spinning around. I'm also going to maybe have a little bit of a play with maybe putting some kind of spotlights into here as well, and having them kind of cast out lights using light materials so that we can have some really cool kind of projected light. But yeah, each of these has some spinning ones, and we also have a ground one as well, which maybe you could interact with, and it just kind of moves out of the way. That one, don't think my character is going to fit through there, so I might need to do a little bit of scaling on that. Ladders are cool because we've got these different elements. This might be where you want to actually create some kind of blueprint system to extend out these as many as you need. Maybe we're perfectly fine with this one, but we have got the end point as well, so you can just kind of snap one of these onto the end of this. I'll probably drag that off on the wrong axis. Let's have a little look. So if I drag it on this axis over here, there you go. We probably don't want to be on a one snapping, but yeah, you can see you can put them out to the top. So if you want to create like a blueprint system that you basically drag out, that's exactly what this framework that I'm using has. You can just make your kind of procedural ladders, and it's nice that we've got two different options. We've got the ones that are just handholds and the ones that are the actual kind of physical struts. So yeah, here's all the kind of the generator, and there's also this one which you saw earlier. I haven't got it here with the same material that it has in the under area of the ship where it's kind of spinning, but yeah, one of these materials can be changed over, and we've got this kind of like little terminal thing that's just placed on top. One thing that's worth noting that I noticed when I'm on here, so we've got lots of these screens that are separate, yeah, so loads of these individual elements have a screen. So this, you can see I've just moved it away a little bit. Let's maybe just snap that down to 10, and you can see I can just snap it into there. So that's where that screen should live. And if we go and have a look, Polygon Sci-fi Horror Screen, what you might find if you go into the pack, you might find that actually you look at stuff and you go, this is broke. Why is this broke? So for example, this one here, can you see how it's basically showing the whole tile map? There's a whole bunch of these where they've got multiple material elements, multiple material IDs on the mesh. So you can see here this one, element 0, which is the kind of the exterior bit of this, and element 1, which is the screen. I believe that was the right way around. And obviously this isn't meant to be using the whole of that. It's designed to use the screen. So if you click on these and go to screen, you can see that there are a whole bunch of sci-fi horror screens. So if I scroll down, how many have we got? 18 screens there, but then there's even more kind of error screens and the face screens. There's a lot, yeah. Like we think about how many kind of individual screens that there can be. There's screens on the weapons, there's screens just here on these kind of greebles, there's screens on the kind of control panels, there's materials that we can get where these individual lights are flickering on and off. So there's a whole bunch of like dynamic elements we can add in here. Yeah, so if I just kind of show you this screen and go with, I like to just go with screen 1 just for now so I can flick through them easy later. There you go, Syncom. That's a nice little screen. And actually if we look at that, it's not just a screen. Look, we've got this kind of old school kind of effect over the top of it. So yeah, greebles, look at that. Look at the amount of greebles, and just looking at that and going back and thinking about that first corridor that we looked at, or where we went into the bottom of the ship, there is so much that is being reused, recolored. We can go through each of these and just go through and change. You go through material 1. Well, there's multiple versions. Then there's material 2, 3. There's the A, B, C versions. If you went through every single one of these, there's so much variation in what you can do just by duplicating these greeballs and putting them across the wall. Yeah, so we'll look at the wall materials and things in a bit, but yeah, it might look like, oh, it's a bit boring, the walls are a bit flat, there's not a lot going on, but you can just put these things on and every single wall suddenly becomes so much more unique, so much more individual. Geeky, you are incredibly correct on that. Yeah, what we could do is we could put a UI element, so we could use some kind of world space UI, put it onto an element here and just have whatever you want on the screen. Yeah, this kind of stuff's cool on the material, but yeah, let's have it actually talking to us. Let's have it doing some kind of animated effects, anything you want. Let's have it with data. Let's have it, maybe it's pretty much using, if we look at it, it's pretty much using the whole UV space. So what we could also do is maybe use a render texture and use it for the cameras, and we could find what the cameras are seeing and use this overlay effect over the top of it and recolor it. But yeah, look at all these greeballs. I love a good greeble, especially if we take this pack. Look at these lens flares are terrible. I've got no post-processing here, but these kind of greeble things, I will put these into Sci-Fi City, I'll put these into Sci-Fi World, Sci-Fi Space. I'll use these all the time. Yeah, you can see there's a screen, there's another screen, there's another screen. Each of those again is going to be another opportunity to add like, you know, color and variation. We've got tables, we've got beds, you can see all this stuff when you can walk around the scenes. We've got sofas, these are consoles, so we can make these interactive. Again, each of these, if we click on them, you can see has multiple elements. So the screen is a separate material ID, so I can have whatever information, or I can go through and maybe have a sequence that changes. So maybe it says login, and when you can, they all say login, yeah, they all say login at the start. So when you go over and interact with them, let's change that from the login screen, which is screens 2, to something else. Yeah, we can walk up to these, we can use them, and we can see what's going on. We've got, again, what I said, destroyed versions of things. So we've got the cryopod and the destroyed cryopod, and there's pretty much like a running theme with that. This is one of those things you can look at with this pack and go, okay, well, it's going to hit the fan at some point, and when it does, well, we've got like nice clean versions, we've got broken versions, we've got nice clean versions, we've got broken versions. Yeah. Yeah, so I'm working through here. I'm working through, trying to tidy it all up and just seeing what's in for myself. This is health packs, like even like, you know, just having them not just be a static thing that's on the wall. Yeah, how many asset packs do you have where this is literally just this box, yeah, and you just pick up that box and you get your health. Yeah, this has got like whole bunches of kind of cool stuff you can do where you can open this up. So maybe when we interact with this, it's not just a, oh, I open it, I overlap it and it heals me. It could overlap, and then we've got tools and things in there. Yeah, so it's just those extra little things that we've got there. Let's have a look. Working cameras that could put the visuals and yeah, I'm gonna go and have a look at that because I think I want to do that myself. Selecting them, if I can remember correctly, I can never remember. I'm pretty sure it's just T, isn't it? Yeah, so you see I can't select them. T, it basically allows translucent selection. So you can't select when T, like when the translucent selection's off, you can't select anything that has the opacity element on it. You select through, and then when you've got T on, you can just select the glass. There you go. That's all there is with that. It's not that I've actually changed anything on the materials. I think I just run with that all the time anyway. Let's go and have a quick look in the building one. So yeah, the building one I've kind of finished. There's a lot I want to do with some of the others. Let's have a look. So yeah, this is my actor palette level that I use for basically constructing and putting some levels together. And yeah, I mean, I like overview levels. Overview levels, it's very much like, let's get all of these assets and let's just go, cool, let's run this script that just goes, place one of them, then place the next one 200 units over, then the next one 200 units over. And once we've done as many rows, let's start a new column and let's just go again. So that's great, but it doesn't help me when I'm putting through the level and going, okay, well, what have I got? What can I use? And how do these things go together? So what I do is I build my own little actor palette level. And you can see here, you know, I've got the different walls. I can see which ones have the windows. I can see which ones have the doors and what all goes together. And I've also separated out, you know, I've got the door level, the door meshes and the door elements. I've got the wall elements. I've got what goes into them. This is a really cool one because like this is more than just a bunch of objects that go onto there. You can see here that actually each of these has an individual kind of openable bit, so I can actually open up this door. If I was to put this on, you know, you can see I can open this door. One of the things I'm going to go through in this is I'm going to actually go through and make each of these into a kind of an interactive blueprint, so you can go through and open and close them. This one I didn't actually move the glass over. There we go. So let's put the glass so I can just see it separated. And yeah, this is cool stuff because it means that you could actually go through and make it where it's a gap, which could be cool for a cover shooter where maybe you shoot through or you vault over it, using it to get away from the alien. It could be that it's destructible glass, so you actually smash this. There isn't actually a destroyed, smashed version of this glass, but you could, just use a destructible mesh or create a particle effect of glass shards and then have them destroyed out the way. Or you could have it where you could see through it, but you can't actually get through, which is really useful for level design of showing attractors and things on the other side. I could show something on the other side of this glass, like looking through into the lab, being able to see through this big curved window, seeing the lab, seeing what's behind it, but not being able to get in there yet until I get the key. Maybe showing the player their objective. We've got this big vault door, so really big, heavy duty one. We've got the handle separate for that, and then we've got loads of these kind of individual ones where we've got top and bottom for opening, closing, up and down, and opening, closing, left and right. Doesn't feel like there's a lot of variation, but there is obviously lots of color variation that we can do with those. And you think about a spaceship. I mean, I don't know much about spaceships. I can't remember the last time I went to space, but it's not like every single door is going to be a unique door on your spaceship. We're going to be like, well, we need a door here. We'll fit this same door that we've already had. The doors probably have different purposes based on different areas of the ship and whether they need to be maybe facing out or protecting us from pressure. So maybe all the interior doors are going to be either double wide thickness or single thickness ones, and we don't really need to go through more. One of the things I might have a look at, I'm hoping, I haven't checked it yet, but I'm hoping that these kind of doorways, and they look like they will be, are consistent with other doorway sizes from other packs. And if that's the case, then hopefully that means we've also got the ability to bring in some sci-fi space, sci-fi city, sci-fi worlds doors as well. And we've got this lovely alcove as well. We can do a bunch of stuff in. Trims, just like greebles, trims are really nice to have. I believe this is meant to be a floor one and this is meant to be a roof one, but who cares? Use them for whatever you want. Rotate it round. So we've got some angled ones, some padded ones, and some of these ones. We've also got some 45-degree ones because obviously when we go off on the angles, we're going to need slightly longer and different lengths of those. Why the 45? Well, because it's based on Alien and there's just loads and loads of octagonal stuff all the way. There's only one set of stairs. Maybe it would be nice to have maybe a corner piece for this if we wanted to do maybe a big podium or having an inside corner and an outside corner. One of the things I did notice in the demo scene is that it has multiple of these around the generator or around an area, and they just all overlap each other. So there might be Z-Fight, and I haven't checked that, but they just rotate a bunch of these, rotate 8 of them round and overlap them. Railings are always cool, and we do have the cockpit. The cockpit itself is one big mesh, and that's meant to basically match with what we've got of the front of that ship. So if you want to have what we see at the front of that spaceship, that's why I showed it earlier, we've got the mesh that represents that. Now obviously you might want to make your own cockpit. This is because it matches that one from that ship, and if you wanted to go with Nostromo, it's got multiple levels and stages to it, or the Prometheus one definitely has. But if you want a very small little room and then build out from there, this one matches the exterior ship. And we've also got blast shields as well. Everybody wants kind of your shutter to protect us. We have got floors. These ones here, one of the things that if you don't know about this, Synty packs come with this kind of, we come with Synty. We get the epic content, which is, as I said, the base mannequin. It's also all the third person animations. It's your UE4 character. But we also get this awesome polygon generic. Now, I show this to my students all the time because if you buy a pack, you're not just getting whatever that themed pack is. You're also getting a bunch of stuff that is just awesome for generic prototyping. So things like, you know, barrels and bottles for potions, coins, food, all of this stuff just comes in the Polygon generic folder. Yeah, there's loads of use you can get out of this, like different weapons for pickaxes and axes and things like that. But there's also in the meshes, there's the buildings section. So not buildings, sorry, base. There you go. And this is like the modular building kit. So you could go through as well and use these modular pieces. Yeah, so wall 01 is the one I've used over here. And I've just basically put a whole bunch of these wall 01s with the different materials that we get. Now some of these materials, like this one for example, if I go and find that material, let's go and have a quick look. There, that can go away for a sec. Let's scroll down so we can find the material. So this material, if I go and have a look for it, and maybe, is that the material? That's not the material that we're looking at there, is it? That's the one on the other side. So this one here, if I go and look at reference viewer, you can see that that is actually being used on the wall alcove, which is this one over here. So you can see how it creates kind of like the backing around that. But what we could do is we could just use it as a blank wall piece to create a level from, and then yeah, let's just put some greebles onto here. Yeah, we can go into the sci-fi pack greeble and start adding some of these on top. Yeah, so you want to add, I don't know, which one's this greeble pack? This one's nice. I don't like snapping at 10. Let's just snap that up to 50 and see if that's going to match on the wall. Yeah, that's a little bit better. Bit too high, but we'll fix that. So we've got one of them, and maybe one of these to put on. And again, let's just rotate this round. Probably, yeah, that'll do. Let's go that way. So I'm just going to press my square brackets, and that changes the size of my my snapping. And yeah, I can just move these around. So this just literally just working as a background. Yeah, it's working as a background for everything else to be placed onto. And these greebles are what is going to create individual unique pieces for us. Yeah, so if you're a level designer, you're probably not worried necessarily about all this stuff straight away. You're worried about the layout and the construction, which is where that modular piece kit comes in, because you can lay everything out and get the structure, get the kind of layout of which rooms go where. But afterwards, when you come in, that's when you can use all these pieces here to make environmental pieces like that. And I could probably put, you know, trim pieces down at the bottom. I know you said they're geeky. It's not got the 500 by 500. They're all of the floor building floors. Do you mean like the meshes are 250 by 250 here in terms of like they're not 500 by 500? Because I didn't have a look at what size options we've got, but honestly I don't use that immediately. So let's have a quick look. Polygon generic, meshes, base. And if we go and have a look, what have we got? We've got floors in here. There they are, floor. So that floor is 250 by 250. Okay. So yeah, we don't have a large size floor, do we? They're all 250 by 250, 250 by 125. And that one is with a hole in it for you to drop through. Yeah, so there's not like an option to be saying, oh, can I have a much larger floor? Yeah, that's a pain, isn't it? That's something I do like. I've got a couple of blockout packs. I do like in my blockout packs where I have the ability to have like, you know, let's say this is 250 by 250. That's fine. But having like a 500, a 250, a 100 and then a 50 and having each of them mapped out, it would be nice if, I know it's going to make this kit, this bit here, a much bigger, but just having the bigger size and then having the kind of the individual ones. One thing I do like is where the size is a bit maybe in the naming convention, but it's not going to be too much of a problem, is it? Having to, for anybody that doesn't know, what you do is just hover over it and you can see there where it says approximate size 250 by 250, and obviously it's 0 because it's completely flat plane. But yeah, this is basically the wall pieces. Yeah, you're not just going to be using these though. These are kind of like your decorative things to add 3D. The majority of it, you're probably going to block it out with these kind of reusable pieces. And let's just say you left it as just this one wall piece for the whole thing. you're just going to be working with those, and if you're going with that kind of alien vibe with it, it's probably going to be lots of 45 degree and 90 degrees, and then coming in afterwards and messing around with these, or adding in some curved ones. Yeah, curved, there's only one angle, but at least we've got windowed and doored version. Something I did notice with the doored one, so you can see that I'm just going to take a copy of this, so I'll show you this. I was worried about this one when I saw that little whatchamacallit, the little cupboard. So if I take the doors position and paste it onto the walls position, paste it onto the door, you can see they've both got the central point of the room there as their pivot point, which does mean that if you rotate around that pivot point, and the door will go inside of the wall. Yeah, so I did check, you can't see any of it clipping through, so yeah, the door does go inside. That's pretty cool. And same thing for the glass, yeah, which is, yeah, that's one way it's nice because the consistency is there. Same with the glass on this one. Some of these took a little bit of extra working out because we've got doors that have their pivots on the side, and then glass that has its pivot in the same place. But obviously trying to match those up with the edges, you might just have a little bit of extra work to do. This one didn't feel like that was going to be the side that it would open from. Yeah, I'm not sure. I might be changing the pivot on this one, to be honest, because I would imagine that the side that the handle's on, I did have a handle in here. Where's the handle gone? Yeah, I can't find the handle. Yeah, there was a handle for this door. So if I go and find this door somewhere in here, I haven't sorted these out into folders yet, but this one, door, there's the handle. Where's the handle? There it is. Oh, it's just merged over there when I've been messing around. But yeah, this handle here, like if you look at your doors, handles tend to be the opposite side. So yeah, maybe this will get updated in the future, but honestly I'm just going to go into the modelling mode and just pop it on the other side. You open the door from the other side from where the handle is. But yeah, other than that, this is nice, and it's nice having door handles be separate. It's the only door handle. Probably might want more of them, but let's go and have a look. It seems I'm moaning about door handles and interactive things. Let's just go and have a quick look into the rest of the overview, because I think there's something like really to give, like, you know, kudos for here, which is like all the allowances and affordances for interactivity and interactive elements that we can have in here. Yeah, you've confirmed it there for me. Yeah, the pivot point's on the wrong side. I'd imagine if we tell them, that'll be an update in an upcoming one. So if we go with something like, I think it's switch, no, lever was the one that I wanted. There you go. So lever, every single lever, you can see here, there's the lever. I'm just going to slow this one down. Obviously got these points on it, but if I go and look at lever handle, they've placed them in the demo scene where they need to be, but also every single one of these levers is completely separate. So if you've got, like, you know, interactive switches, you could have this. I'm hoping, I need to go into the materials and mess around with it, but I'm hoping I can mess around with these. Well, I can definitely do it myself, but I'm hoping that there's already materials that are in here for this to basically have the green on and the red on at separate times. So we can have it like where it's down, it's green, and then when it's, oh, let's not change the thing so it rotates around in the wall, but let's have it where, yeah, maybe when it's green, and then when it's that one, it's red. Yeah, we can just basically have the player walk up, interact, and when they do, it goes up and down. But yeah, like that one. Then there's also this one over here, and yeah, you've guessed it, this lever here. This is a different kind of lever. This isn't going to be your switchy one. This is moving up and down, and you can see just moving it up in snaps of 5 or snaps of 10. You can see we can have multiple levels on that. And then lever 3 is basically just a lever handle. So let's have the actual handle, and there we go. We can just switch these handles. So again, loads of like little tiny decorative but interactive pieces that we'll put in. These are nice. Yeah, so you can see here, these are kind of individual size panels. So we've got, you know, the 1x7, the grid one. We've got some more 3x3 grids. We've got some 2x4s over there. This is the kind of stuff that you go into your your mother area and you just put these all over everything. And again, think about those greeballs. We just go through and just put loads of these on every single little greeble element, because they're actually, if you go and have a look at them, they're actually 3D. Yeah, they're not tiny little planes, they're little 3D buttons. So if we've got different materials on these, we can have them obviously flashing, turning on and off. So yeah, what else have we got in here? We've kind of looked at all of our little post-its. This one here, the actual prop button, I don't believe that the button itself is actually pressable, which is a shame. We would like that one. These are nice. Anybody who's ever played on an N64. We've got cartridges, so we can go with the kind of old school putting a cartridge in. We've got your tape recorder style stuff. So it's nice that they've lent into this kind of 70s 80s vibe with everything. We got joystick controllers, and there is also a whole bunch of board game kind of elements as well. There's a lamp. The lamp itself again has each of these pieces separate. Would it be nice to have a skeletal version? Maybe, but if you know what you're doing in Unreal, you can set up kind of constraints and stuff on here and make one of these that can be edited. But probably not going to need to. Maybe a control rig if you need to have them, so you can place them as a skeletal mesh and just angle them where you want. But honestly, it might just be that you're just placing them and angling them and setting it up for what you want it to look at in a very static scene. And that is something I have asked about as well. There's quite a few kind of light fixtures and light elements in things like Horror Asylum. Things like this and some of the lamps and things like that, we may have had a blueprint where it had some lights already built in, like the mesh of the light and the actual kind of the light actor, but there's not really any of those kind of prefab preset things. So just like there's not interactive doors, there's not any kind of prefab lights, which again is not a problem, but it's just cool when things are maybe set up like this, where it's set up. None of them have been incredibly kind of tedious to kind of work out, not since the war pack, when I was trying to work out how to put together a flak 88 with all the different pieces. But yeah, it would be nice maybe, that would be my one thing, it would be nice maybe if there was a couple more of these kind of just put together as a prefab so you can see what they are. Maybe even not put together as an animated kind of prefab, but just having it right click, level, create a pack level actor, and just having your kind of level instance or your pack level actor and going, here is a combination prefab, like Unity has prefabs. So you use the pack level actor, put these things together. And yeah, where is Sweepo? Can't remember where Sweepo is in all of this craziness. There he is, I think. Yeah, there. Well, that's the little basic version of him, isn't it? Where's the other one? There you go. Look at this little guy here. I love his little face. But yeah, would it be nice if there was, again, some separate pieces that we could maybe mess around with? Maybe, but it depends on how much animated extra bits you need. We at least can make him very Star Warsy in his kind of rotating round and looking at what he's doing. Yeah, oh, actually that is separate. That I didn't mess around with. Oh no, you set me off, Geeky. I'm gonna go and make this guy go around and start cleaning all the floors and interacting with things, actually doing a bit of a kind of sci-fi horror, what happens after cleaning up. I think there's already a game for that, isn't there? I can't remember what now. It's probably something stupidly obvious. What else we got? We got cockpit. This cockpit is kind of designed to go and fit into that one, but there's some core screens here. You can pretty much build what we've got here with the terminals and the greebles. Oh man, I'm gonna go find that. Link me that video on the Discord. I want to have a look at that. Cupboards. Cupboards actually have openable doors, and if you go and look through some of the levels, you'll see some of these actually have the weapon racks and things inside. This workbench, very similar to your kind of Dead Space kind of workbench. Notice we got the drawers pull out, so at least on this kind of overview level, one of the things is that they've at least put things next to each other as they would be assembled. Yeah, that is nice to have, like things like the handle here so you can turn things on. This is the separate terminal, but you can put all these things together and go, cool, that's how it might be. And you can just select all the pieces, Control C and Control V, and put them into your own levels. Pipes, they've tended to just use these underneath floor grating as like something that adds depth underneath the floors. We've got the cryopods. You can see that they actually have like a handle bit here, and if we open it up from the handle, you can see it opens out and it opens out. There you go. So little fella inside, Jeff, who's having a little nap, can wake up and get out of there. We have the corner pieces for our little pipes, and it's nice because we've got the inside and outside corners. Yeah, that's always nice to have. And yeah, this is the kind of stuff I'm talking about, where they had in previous packs maybe blueprints, with this maybe having a spotlight or a rect light, and it's in a blueprint, and you can just drag these things in and then tweak values. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much, we've got a wheelchair. Yeah, I forgot to say about that one. We have a wheelchair with the wheels as separate elements as well, so we can move those around. Very nice to have. Suits hanging up. So if you want to get your character to go up, interact with a suit, they can then change to a character that has a suit. There you go. So we've got all these space suits. So yeah, cool stuff. And I'll just show you what it looks like a little bit with kind of gameplay, systemsy stuff going on in there. Unless anybody's got anything that they really want to have a look at, anything cool they want to ask about or see a closer view of, because I'm happy to show any of that. But yeah, this obviously I put it in the third person shooter pack, so I've got things like cover and stuff already set up in here, but you can see what it's going to look like if we were to use this in a game. Yeah, so got some cover. Yeah, it's pretty cool. And I have made some kind of prefab starting points for these. So you can see this is the sci-fi knife, or the horror knife. Yeah, and we've got the flamethrower. Don't have a flame effect at the moment. And the sci-fi rifle. There's arrows up there just because I basically had to turn off every single attachment, because this doesn't really have any attachment pieces. But we could go through some of the other sci-fi packs and see whether there's scopes and extra things we can have. But there we go. Yeah, Geeky, you are correct there. That is something that we don't really have much of, do we? So if we go characters, although it's not actually characters that we're looking for, is it? Because they would be under meshes. So meshes, characters. Yeah, we've pretty much got kind of over here. So if we zoom in, we've kind of got like this character, but these ones here are missing feet, missing shoes. I don't know. Maybe these two should get together and get a matching pair of shoes, because he's left foot and a right foot. But yeah, we could maybe have some that weren't so haggard and ripped up. So let's have a look at the skeletal, and then we can flick through. Yeah, this is really kind of like things have gone bad here, haven't they, to have all of this going on. Yeah, I do like the space suits. The head stuff is cool because you can do that kind of whatchamacallit, Doctor Who. I keep on forgetting the name of that show. Like, how can you forget that? That Doctor Who kind of thing. The Zubs, for anybody who has looked at the other packs before, we've seen Zubs previously. This is a lovely little skeletal Zub. So we can go in here now and we can mess around with each of these little body pieces. Yeah, so you want to animate your own little zubs. I don't believe that the zub used to be a skeletal. I'm pretty sure last time I looked at it, I had to do a bit of material kind of hijinks to make it look like it was animating, which was cool because you could do stuff like Plague Tale, where the mesh looked like it was moving and you just have loads of them on the floor. But yeah, now we can actually kind of animate this to make him actually attack. And yeah, you want to maybe make a little control rig, put it into sequencer, and have your own little, not necessarily a facehugger because it's not a facehugger, but the little larval form of whatever this crazy monster thing is over here. Where is he? There he is. Alien. Yeah, so cool. Anything that anybody else wants to have a look at? Because I'm probably just going to have a continued look in the maps folder and see what else is in there, if there's nothing that people want to see. Yeah, I thought so. Zubs have always been a static mesh, haven't they? I think that there might be some crazy stuff coming in the future with rigged and animated subs and swarms of subs. We'll see. That would be, I mean, Plague Tale style swarm of subs, or even having it where you get near, and I might control rig this out and animate this so when it opens and then a zub comes out of it. I mean, these here, these are alien growth. Let's have a quick look at Synty Dex. Synty Dex, if we can find it. I can't remember if they're called vines or growths in the other pack, but yeah, we can have a little bit of a look. Vine. Yeah, this kind of stuff, like here you can see there's loads of these kind of little viney pieces, and these ones, these have appeared in Dark Fantasy, Dark Fortress, Horror Mansion. I think they've all had bits of them appearing in. Here you go, there's the Horror Mansion ones. So you can probably, I reckon, bring in and merge a whole bunch of those, combine them together, and go even further, because everybody needs a bit more growth. Maybe we need thicker, like ones that are thicker at the ends, so we can have them kind of be quite big and then growing out. But yeah, maybe these, let's see what they look like and how they scale up. So let's scale this up by 3. Yeah, obviously they get much wider as well as they get bigger. Yeah, it would be cool to have some thick ones where they're coming out of the wall, and then these are coming out of those and spreading out. But yeah, I want to cover everything inside. I want to go into Sci-Fi World and just turn it into the aliens, Hadley's Hope. And this is weapon rack, so you can see there's all the weapons just racked up. The crates and barrels have separate lids and insides. Well, hey, look at that. So yeah, we could go with something that's a bit kind of actual kind of Star Wars, Knights of the Old Republic old school, where it just rotates around and then moves out the way. Or you could just have it move up. But yeah, it's not designed to open out, like, rotating out, but it does have a separate lid. Radios. We have a toilet. Everybody needs a sci-fi toilet. And yeah, I'm worried why this one has a very dark patch in the moment. Actually, if you've seen the alien, that's why there's a dark patch. This one seems very situational. There is a bowl with cereal in it, but we have a version of it where these O's are going everywhere, and if you can find it, it's hidden away in here, the individual Syntyo. There is one individual Syntyo, so if you want to have like crazy kind of moment of it chest bursting out and Syntyos going splashing out of a bowl, you can do that. You can have your own particle effects of Syntyos, or pouring them out of a box. This, I feel like this should belong with all the weapons and equipment and stuff, but we've got a carryable torch. That's always nice to have. We've got the individual kind of sides of our pliers, and maybe need to bring them there. Yeah, so you can see, is the pivot off on that one? Maybe. or is it because it's only going to pivot around a certain place? Let's have a quick look at it from the other side. Yeah, I mean, that one is where you'd anticipate then maybe this is going to pivot, like that one's going to stay static and this one's going to be the one that pivots. But yeah, maybe they both should have their pivot in exactly the same place and we choose which one moves. A wearable one, and also we've got a little key card. Yeah, so it says cartridge, but I mean it's a key card, isn't it? Yeah, you can take that, you can put it into a whole bunch of the different terminals. You could have it where you've got to go find samples and heads. You want to go and be a little bit kind of old school. We've got some dice, and there's probably some of those things in other packs as well, isn't there? The bobble heads, every single one of them, the head is separate, so you can set up a physics constraint and have them bobble around. And we've got all sorts of food and drink dispensers. We got fire extinguishers, which you could use as a potential weapon or equipment as well. And we have this thing, which is another, it says artifact. This is very kind of Dead Space and bits of Alien. Yeah, so artifact. I don't know where this one specifically has come from. Yeah, this one maybe could be taken from the growths. We've not seen anything with this yet. I'm worried about what this is going to come from, maybe in the future, or maybe from the kaiju. Yeah, we've got the kaiju packs in the recent Humber bundle, so maybe there's some things in there. We've got legs. We got whatever that is. I wouldn't eat it. The camera. Yeah, I know, Geeky, you were just talking about the cameras, so I'm just going to slow down my speed. The camera is cool because everything has separated. Again, this is where potentially in previous packs we may have seen this kind of thing as a skeletal mesh. I think it's nice to have the option, but I mean, I probably will set this up to be done with a timeline and just animating this. But you can see we can rotate this round, and this also rotates up and down to look. Hey Kieran, how you doing, mate? Favorite elements so far. That's a different one, difficult one. Really, because the problem I've got, and I think Kieran you'll remember this, is I absolutely love Alien, like ridiculously love Alien. So it's difficult because it could be things like the terminals. Yeah, honestly, the terminals and things like that, and the greebles, the terminals and the greebles, they just feel like they should be there on the Nostromo. They feel like they should be there on, you know, Hadley's Hope. There's obviously time differences with some of the new ones, with like Prometheus and Covenant, but if you know anything about like the development of Alien Isolation, in the studio they had Alien, the original, just playing, not necessarily with the sound on, but just playing constantly. So they were always keeping that in mind, and they wouldn't look at things like Aliens, because the different futurist, because it is a 40-50 years on of difference. There's a lot that can change technology wise, but yeah, things like these, there's just really cool kind of bits you can do with this. Forgot about the crates. Oh, look at that, crates all open up. This one obviously doesn't, because they're all fastened up. But yeah, ripped up posters, more terminals, dead body. What are they calling it? It's a crate. I mean, that's a washing basket, or it's a let's pick this guy up and take him away and put him away. But yeah, there's some cool stuff in here. Another camera. Let's have a look at the other camera. So this one, static on the wall. This bit is obviously going to rotate round, and then this bit here is going to rotate there. So yeah, the only reason I was going to set the camera up. The only reason I haven't set the camera up to look at it is because the one that the third-person shooter pack uses is a skeletal one, and this is just going to need a little bit of editing to get it, or at least it's going to need a different system to get it to rotate round. But yeah, I'm going to get the cameras having a look, maybe like the Alien Isolation ones, where when you walk into the range, they will start maybe changing colour. We've got loads of cartridges. I wonder, oh man, how much detail did they go into? Let's have a little look at this. So this is material 1. Let's have a look. No, it's just the exterior. Yeah, it was worth having a look. I thought maybe we might find out that if I went through all the different colours, we had different images inside of the cartridge itself. And then, I don't know why I've got the screen one. There we go. Then we could have basically had a stack of different games. So I was looking for Easter eggs. You've got to look for those Easter eggs to see whether a future game might be, or a future pack might be sneakily communicated to us. This is where they might be sneaking them. Yeah, like look at these little tiny not posts. What are they called? Polaroids. Yeah, we've seen that Sci-Fi Worlds. Yeah, there's Alien there, and that Sci-Fi Worlds. So these are kind of like the Sci-Fi Worlds pictures, but just reduced down massively. That's Sci-Fi Space. Why do I know all those? I don't know. Mugs. NerveNet. We got Syncom and NerveNet. Yeah. What about these? Let's check whether those material things can be changed then. So this one material. Oh, okay, so that one looks like it's off, which is nice to have. That's just a color change. That's the button. I mean, it's nice to have all the different button changes because we can at least go through each of these and, you know, make them match to the theme of your ship. But okay, maybe I'm gonna have to do a little bit of looking around then to get that to not be red. But what that one literally could be is if we look in this material instance here, this has the emissive texture, emissive strength. There is an emissive tint, so maybe we can go in here, create a variation of it and play around with that emissive tint and just change it to a different color. I don't know how that's going to work because obviously this is using this emissive, and it depends on which bit of this emissive it's using, because if it's using a red bit, one of the things we'll have to think about is with the emissive, the blinking materials will make it blink on and off. Okay, let's have a look at them. I didn't look at the other ones. Let's have a look at blinking materials. Oh, we can go and have a look at all the error ones as well. They're nice. Okay, there. All right, let's just search for blink. Blink would be easier, wouldn't it? Maybe not. Oh yeah, it's a very slow blink, but it's good enough for me. But all red. Yeah, cool. That's fine. I'll have a look at, this is where I want to go and have a look at those little panels, but I reckon that one of the things I might do with this is I might go through, find the emissive texture and have a look at the bit of the UV space that it uses to make the red glow. Obviously it's using it to make the red glow. If I don't know why that one's gone a little bit crazy on its colour, there we go. If I were to turn that white, because one of the things that you've got is if you put the hint, you probably, I'll have to look in the material, but you're probably multiplying the colour and saying, okay, well, let's take whatever colour it is and let's tint it, let's multiply it by a vector. If it's red and we're multiplying it by green, then we're not going to get the green that we want. So what it might be worth looking at is maybe turning the emissive texture that it's using into like a white alpha, and then using different material instances to recolor that to have like a red version and a green version. Then when you make it interactive, you can switch from one to the other. Nice to see you, Kieran. I'll probably do a couple more of these as we go through, so hopefully see you in more of them. I've got Dark Fortress as well that I want to have a little bit of a look through one day, so maybe we have a look at Dark Fortress. Yeah, joystick, look at this. Joystick is actually editable and controllable. Again, do we need to put a constraint or do we just need to rotate it around from there? But cool, and I think I might leave it there because there is a whole bunch of stuff that we've looked at. Anybody that wants to have a look at anything in particular, obviously give me a shout on the Discord and I can show the insides or the details of anything. Okay, you can see there, here's this one where they've got it rotated 18 degrees. So that one's not quite opening out at the angle that we wanted. Yeah, that one is a problem piece. I might tell them about that one. But yeah, anybody got any last questions? Quickly throw them in. Otherwise, yeah, it's been a pleasure, and I'm going to look at putting some stuff together with this. I think my plan is, it's a bit crazy and ambitious, but Alien, I'm pretty sure it's called the Cronus. So let's have a little bit of a look at the Cronus from the Alien RPG. Anybody who's seen or played the Alien RPG, so this is the Cronus. It's very similar to your kind of standard Bison. I'm going to have, FX, you are right, Geeky, let's go and do FX. But yeah, what I'm going to have a look at is maybe putting together the inside of the Cronus using this pack. Yeah, you can see very similar kind of individual rooms with the cockpit and the different layers and levels of it. So we might maybe do that over a couple of streams. FX, you are completely right. The reason I'm forgetting FX is because obviously they're not just immediately jumping out in here and going, look at this cool stuff. So let's go and have a look at the FX. Maybe we go put the systems testing in the background. Yeah, we can save that. We're not worried about what we changed in there. Cool. So FX. Something that's cool is that they're all Niagara. That is obviously very nice, very forward thinking now, and there's no kind of cascade stuff bleeding through anymore. We have the generic stuff that we get, so blood splatter, dust spots, fire, things like the fire. We get this all the time. This should load up eventually once it's maybe figured out what shader it wants to use. There we go. So yeah, this is the old kind of fires. Yeah, and I know that this is something that they've talked about before with the different versions of fire that they're going to do. This is very much like flat, circular little alphas. I don't believe it's the 3D meshes. It might be the 3D meshes, but it's just lots of them creating the fire. It's kind of like an orange smoke, really, isn't it? Yeah, I think what I might need to use is Sci-Fi Space combined with this one to make the Cronus. I think I'm going to go and blend them all up together and see what we can get. I have got Sci-Fi Worlds maybe to have a look at as well. So yeah, let's have a little look at the effects that we've got. We've got a blood drip, and these actually might be easier to see if we go into the actual particle editor. Yeah, I think that'll be easier to fly around in. Yeah, so we've got blood drip and blood splat, which is hopefully going to load up. They just take a little bit longer to come in, or they're just a pain to get them to show up. But yeah, we go. Well, we see it and put it in here. Let's go. There we go. We can see the blood. But it's just dripping, yeah? And is it the best blood splat? Maybe. You can see it's hitting and it's just throwing little ones of them off in all different directions. Yeah, maybe want to do a little bit more with that one. Blood drip puddle. And again, we just got to wait for these to kick in. There you go, look at that. It is just creating that kind of puddle that goes outwards. Yeah. Nice to combine those, and you've actually seen that in the demo scene. Remember, there was the body that was hanging from one of the vents, and the drips would come down from by the body, drip onto the floor, and having this moving around. It's quite a quick movement, but yeah, we can play around with that movement. It's obviously fading off and then coming back. We got blood splat, so there's quite a lot of actual kind of if you're thinking about making a combat system and you've got things like feedback that you want to add onto your systems, so every time somebody takes damage or every time they get a hit from a melee weapon and you want to have effects coming from it, we've got a whole bunch in here. Blood splat angle as well. Just waiting for these to actually, there we go, look at that. And these are a little bit basic. I probably will try and do some videos in the future for these ones. Like this, I I mean, that there feels a little bit space, like I've dropped this into space. Yeah, you go, like that's like you've been shot in 0G and the individual kind of dots of blood have been sent out. So it's less about like, you know, I've been cut by a big melee weapon or hit by a hammer. That's more I've been shot and the balls are going out. We've got little ones, things like the cigarette smoke, because there is a cigarette. And yeah, very, very, very kind of gradual thing that is there. You can just about see, but it's not really clear. You see this when you put it into the scene a little bit clearer, to be honest. What else have we got? Oh, we have got flame boost around. I didn't notice that we had these. Now that doesn't look like the flamer that I thought it was going to be, but it works for making a flamer, I think. Yeah, so maybe we can have that coming out of our flamer, but that's more of a projectile, isn't it? That's going to be shot out and we're going to fire that across rather than coming out of a flame. I mean, maybe it is. It's not really spreading out like a fire. Flamethrower, that's probably going to be what I'm looking for with the flamethrower, isn't it? There we go, look at that. Yeah, so that's getting attached to the end of the flamethrower later. I reckon that I can probably switch over the particles that are firing out of the weapon and switch them over to the flamethrower one. But again, yeah, this is cool because it's more than just the basic particles that we've been getting, where it's kind of like, you know, a little bit of fog and a little bit of kind of rainy drop kind of stuff. Like, this is actually a flamethrower effect to go with the flamethrower weapon. This is individual kind of effects for, you know, the electricity surge. We've got things for the wires that are hanging. We've got things for the there you go, look at that, the shock gun, like the shock thing where it has the electrical bit at the end, which is very much the new Alien Romulus. You know, he uses that shock thing, sticks it into the alien that's kind of in the cocoon on the wall, creates the scarred one. There we go. So yeah, that flamethrower is going to get built out later. That's going to be stopping me going to bed. That is tonight. I'm going to build more of that. We've got these fires. So as I said, yeah, look at the difference between the fires. They've gone for something very, very different. It's a little bit more kind of old school. If we look at this and at the fire, what we're doing here is obviously the, you know, your usual kind of sprite stuff. How are we using? Let's have a look in here. What we're using with the materials. Yeah, we are. I was going to say, are we using a kind of sprite grid kind of thing for it? I can't remember the term. It's gone out of my head. Where are we going? Let's have a little bit of a look. There we go. The flip book, and we're flipping through. Yeah. So this, if we switch it and look at it on the plane, yeah, it's good enough. Yeah, we're going through. We are switching between each of these, which is, you know, it's a different way of doing your materials. It adds a little bit more realism. They're not as realistic as, you know, the craziness you're going to get in kind of AAA, leaning towards like cinematic Ember Gen levels of things. It's not been rendered out in some other kind of simulation thing. But in terms of having more realistic fire, like, that is looking more realistic than the things we've had before. With probably some more we can add to this. I've got, you know, embers going up here. Okay, cool. Maybe have some kind of sparks and bits that are being spat out and going down with gravity. Maybe a heat shimmer above it as well. There's a couple of little bits that you can add to make them a little bit more realistic. But yeah, I mean, that's cool enough. Let's have a look. So if I get that particle, Control B to find it. We use flame booster, fog. Something to note with the fog is that there's a whole bunch of the fog ground, fog small, that are all over the scene in the actual demo scene. If you're finding that you can't click on individual things, just search for fog and just press H and hide those elements, and it doesn't immediately make a noticeable kind of difference in the visuals, but it means that the fog particles won't be anywhere. And maybe that, you know, the thing I showed you earlier, Geeky, with pressing T for the transparency, maybe that's because I've got that on, that's a problem. gunshot repeating. Let's have a little look. This is very much your kind of your muzzle at the end of your machine gun. And what else have we got? Laser beams with a Z. So we know that somebody is going all out making a cool laser beam if they're spelling it with Z. Yeah, that's pretty cool, isn't it? That's pretty big. Now let's just move this over. I like the fact that it has to update because it's firing these out. Let's go find, where are you, my little friend? Meshes, weapons, and where are you? There you are, mining laser. So we are presuming that this is firing out of this. There we go, something like that. Probably need to budget over a couple more. Not quite, but close enough. There you go, look at that. That is pretty cool, isn't it? So we fire this and fire at that laser. Yeah, no, I don't know about you, but I probably wouldn't fire that inside of a spaceship. That's just asking for trouble, isn't it? But yeah, that is a cool effect. Now let's have a little look inside of that one because it is doing some cool stuff. Let's have a look. So where were you? Laser beam again with the Z because we are aiming for cool. Ah, there we go, look at that. We got 4 different things for this one. So laser beams, collision elements, the laser beam itself, the sparks that are coming out, and maybe have a look at what the exhaust is. Annoyingly, it's such a pain to fly around in this window to look at things. There you go. Yeah, okay, cool. And these were the sparks that were moving down the length of it. And the actual beam, which we can see here is a ribbon renderer rather than the sprites. This one's a mesh, so we're going to create the mesh effect. So if we're going to have a look, if you want to see how these are working, follow this route. So you go down to what the render is, so render, sprite, ribbon and mesh. If I go to the mesh one, you can see that there's a folder hidden away inside of meshes. So we actually have this little mesh zub, which is using a little animated material. So yeah, we could create a whole particle thing of just loads and loads of these meshes being created into our world. But yeah, the cool effects ones, like things like the flame, the blood, the smoke planes, you know, these are like what I was saying with like the heat shimmer. This is where you can put these things on top. Nothing crazy, kind of like the candles in Dark Fantasy, where we had the individual candles and lights and things for every single one, but we don't really need it with these. We've got individual weapon effects for each weapon that we have. Like, that's just nice to have. Any last ones? We've got fog, steam burst. I think did we have a look at steam burst? Yeah, it's just a burst of steam. Yeah, so cool stuff on that one. Steam, I'm presuming this is just going to be steam coming out of a pipe. Yeah, cool, nice. There we go, nice little bit of steam. And spark shower, I've seen spark shower because these ones are coming out of loads of the wires and things all around. So there you go, like as you're walking around the demo scene, you see these little sparks that come out of the ends of like exposed wiring. Again, it's because we've got this kind of cool thing of like, things that are in a really good condition and things that have been really, really damaged. Oh, look at that, tracers as well, where you can see the actual weapon creating the effect as it goes through. Now, one thing that I might do, I'm not saying that this is how it should be done, and one thing that I might do is I might actually split these up so that gunshot repeating, you can see that it's multiple emitters. So what I might actually do is create an asset from this and have my own individual emitters, so I can separate these, and then I can have the muzzle element, the exhaust element with the smoke around it, the the trail elements all separately. But yeah, it's cool that they're just all in one. Black for your fiery smoke, and what else? What's the last one? Zubs. Here we go. Finish on the best one. Look at that. Now that feels weak to me. That feels like we need more Zubs, doesn't it? Yeah. I like the fact that they get smaller and bigger as they kind of just disappear in and out of the world. Yeah, I think they've used this for, I've seen this like with some of the other packs where it's like ants and insects and things that are moving around, spiders and stuff. But yeah, like, it feels weak. Let's have a little bit of a look at what we're creating here. Alright, so Zubs, spawn rate, we are creating 5 of them. So let's just be silly. Alright, there we go. That feels better, doesn't it? Look at all them Zubs. Which video were you watching, Geeky? Was it retargeting ones or something? Or PCG? I need to get back on the PCG because everything has changed from 5.5 and 5.6 and definitely 5.7. There we go. Look at those Zubs, man. What can we do? If we go to initialize particle, you see we've got this uniform scale. Maybe we change the uniform scale to a much smaller one. Although this is non-uniform. Let's go with... Yeah, they're not really... Oh, actually, that's because they've gone back to 1. Yeah, 0.2s. There we go. 0.5. How scary do we want to make these things? Look at them. They're everywhere. But, yeah, we can have all sorts of different sizes. I think they ended up being all different sizes, didn't they? It's not that one, is it? 0.5 on that one. 1.5 on that one. There we go. Oh, right. Do one more. There we go. Plague Tail. Oh yeah. Right, that might be a little bit of a gift to end this crazy stuff on. But yeah, you are right, Geeky. They are cool particle systems, and I'm just going to right click that, asset actions, and reload it. Would you like to reload these? Yes, I would. So because I haven't saved it, I can just right click it and reload it back to whatever it was. But you can see that hasn't actually worked in this case because I must have saved it at 50 or had it feed out at 50. There we go. There we go. 5's fine. Yeah, cool. All right then, folks. I believe, let's just do one quick check, just go through everything again. I mean, I'm going to say it, and there's going to be, there's obviously the decal stuff, there's the posters. Let's just quickly look at the decals before we finish up. The decals, one of the things, as I said before, that they used to do is they put a material, they put it on a plane, and they make it completely like, you know, opacity, and they put it right up against the wall, make it see-through. Now what we've got, because we can add the decals, we can add these decal actors in, and I believe actually if you drag in a decal, it will create the decal actor for you. But yeah, we've got all of these decal elements. So we've got arrows. Now these look really, really big, but they're not necessarily designed to be used at this scale. These are small little guidance elements for the level design. They could be ends to the end of something else. Yeah, so as you're kind of going through, having all the lines set up, these could be the end points for the line, or they could be guidance elements in between those. Think about the fact that because it's an arrow, it's giving direction to the player, telling them which way to go. Lots of them are very much the same thing, but duplicated. Be quiet. Okay. Got some writing. Good old blood drags. Blood drag. So if you want, go and have a look at Horror Mansion. Has some of these as well. There's plenty of kind of, you know, horror, scary stuff in Horror Mansion, and I maybe believe the the fairground one. I can't remember what the name of that horror one is, but I know that was recently. Was it that was recently in the Humble Bundle as well? So yeah, like loads of these kind of splatters and warning signs and things we can put in. There we go. Oh, that's a completely different one, because I don't think that's from this pack. Is it? Maybe. Let's have a look. Hover over it. Yeah, that's the third person kit. So Deaf to Syncom. There we go. Everybody wants to have that. Don't trust security. Now obviously I'm going through these, but you can see these better on the picture that is in the marketing kind of screenshots. But yeah, you can see there's loads and loads of stuff. There's the individual icons. This here is a cool one, because these are the semiotic symbol things that you might see in Aliens. So if you're interested in this, go and have a look at things like the Alien semiotic standard and the individual symbols that they used for things. So if we just go and have a look, you can see different systems had different semiotic kind of icons for them. So yeah, if you are looking into some of these decals and you want to use the decals for guiding people and you want to go with Alien, you might want to make a couple of these, because that's what these are kind of leaning towards, these icon ones. They're very much towards that semiotic icon symbology. Keep running, and then the lines. Yeah, now obviously look at the one that has the correct effect on it. Is that blurry because it's using the B at the base? Yeah. Is it blurry because it hasn't loaded up, or is it because of the surface? Yeah, it's just because it hadn't loaded up. There we go. Just waiting on the shader. Yeah, so decal lines, there's loads of these lines, and then there's also these ones where it's like the different guidance systems for the player. Yeah, so don't touch glass. Yeah, we've got extra guidance things you can put in. Some of these are pretty much the same, just with different colorations on them. So just material instances with different colors. Yeah, things like these straight lines, they're all the exact same, they're just with a different color tint. So there's not really anything changing with those. I like the logo stuff. That's nice to have because you can just plaster those over everything. It's very likely I've already got a decal for Weyland-Yutani, Weyland Corp and a bunch of the others. It's very likely that I'm going to go and find that and bring that in and start putting Weyland-Yutani icons over everything, I think, because that would just add so much. There we go. Yeah, so what Geeky's just said, that's something to point out, and this is a thing that's in like lots of the demo scenes. Yeah, so the easy way to show this would be like having maybe a blood pool. This blood pool here, it projects down onto everything that's below. So if I take this blood pool and put it here, you can see it goes onto everything. Yeah, and if I go and play the game and I move into that zone, I get plastered by it as well, which is obviously not what you want. So one of the things that you might want to do when you're working on these decals is, if I get the decal again, there we go, is actually go in there and start messing around with the scale. So if you go down into decal size, don't worry about the scale bit here, keep the scale as it is, go into decal size and play around with this. Now I've obviously got these uniformly scaling, but if I change this one, so not that one, it should be the tall one, there we go, and make that really small. So if we go with like 1, maybe even 0.1 if we can get it right up against the floor. I'm not on a really low scaling, but yeah, you can put this so it's pretty much just on the floor. Yeah, and I think we can press end, but 1's not enough for us to get it on end, so we might need to just mess around with that. But that now only projects onto things that are lower than that. Yeah, so if we go over there now, there we go, you can see it's not all over there, and it's also not high enough, and even if it was slightly high, it would just be on the edge of our character's feet by like 1 unit, so we're not going to see that. It's just going to blend us into the floor. No one's like looking at your feet right at the base, but there you go, we've got that. If you really didn't want to have things being affected, you can select and go into your options, and you've got an option here for receives decals. So I could turn this off so that decals wouldn't be projected. So if you don't want to be as accurate as, you know, here where I'm putting 1 on there, the reason for that is because decals don't allow you to project things around curves and around angles very well. So it might be that you've got objects and things that you just don't want them to be catching it, but you need to have a little bit more depth. Well, in that instance, what you might want to do is just turn off the receives decal so they can't get that. But yeah, there's so much cool stuff like the decal elements as a kind of a level design tool to be able to guide the player through. There's cool stuff for like environmental storytelling with the blood splatter and the writing and things on the wall, but things like the semiotic standards bit where it's showing the symbology, the bits where it's like the Syncom kind of logos and the naming of the locations of where we are, they add so much additional things for us, you know, of what is going on in this world, and just going through afterwards and kind of guiding the player without having to put UI for everything on there. Yeah, there we go. Good old new quote. Cool. So yeah, let's do the check one more time. We've got the base materials. We've already talked about the different materials that are in there. There's the blinking ones. Go and have a look for all the blinking. I do think I'm going to go through and colorize the emissive texture. So you've got these emissive textures. Maybe have a look at colorizing this into white or making a variation. There you go. There's a green one. Okay, there is a green one. So maybe what I do, I just need to have a look at is which one is specifically using this, and then that's the material that we use. So reference viewer. So we've got a bunch of them here. Yeah, shiny, 3 shiny, and 3C. They all seem to be using that. So what I might just have to have a look at is whether I need to make a new material instance for some of the emissive things where it uses the green one instead. But there's also blue, there's orange. That would mean that we can switch between it being in an on state and an off state. So that's what we wanted with the switch and the levers. The decals we've looked at, they're really cool. The FX things, obviously, there's the really cool fire sheets that they're now doing. There's the smoke effect. These are all things we've seen in the FX that we looked at. Posters, which again, posters are there. They are going onto the 3D meshes, but you could have a look at making those into a decal. And yeah, all the wall textures, which we see if we look into the materials. You can see if you go into the materials and things like your floors, these floors here, and also a bunch of things like these wall ones. These ones down at the bottom are ones, the wall trims are used on other meshes. They're not as good, but these ones, wall all the way up to like I think wall 05, those are good ones just to place on the basic walls, and then cover them with greebles, cover everything with greebles. Here's all your screens, and again, look at all these. We've got alerts, system failures, and really cool stuff going on with these. The faces appearing, probably won't use the faces so much, but the alert ones and the different command ones I will use loads. We've got all our characters that are already set up, so you can play as those. Ignore the fact my helmet's on the floor. I will do something with the alien and put that in the Discord, I think. And yeah, like all the different parts of the ship, and then the props, 563 props. Yeah, so there is a lot of stuff in here. Lots of destroyed stuff, lots of small little details, but if you're looking at something like Alien, it's only a couple of rooms, it's only a couple of connected things with corridors, and the fact that they've got 563 props here for storytelling different locations and putting, you know, a really kind of lived in feel to that, there's just so much there. And then yeah, good range of weapons as well, which you've already seen make functional and with the particles. So yeah, cool. So yeah, that's sci-fi horror. I'm gonna probably spend the next week or two just playing around in here. Anybody who has any questions, send me a message. I'm happy to have a look. I'm probably going to try and do another couple of these live streams at some point, maybe with some different themes to them, or maybe with other packs. Dark Fortress is one that I've been looking at recently, but it might be that I just carry on working in here and do some extra stuff if people are interested in watching me deving out and maybe even making the Cronus. Yeah, because that will give me the motivation to keep on doing it. But yeah, cool. It's been a pleasure, and hopefully catch up with a load more of you soon. See you later, folks.